Hello and welcome to Firstpost Spotlight, where we bring you stories that matter to you from around the world. From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, I'm Kerry Johnston, live from the Firstpost studios. Well, let's begin with the top headlines. The Israeli military announces a series of strikes in Lebanon targeting Iran-backed Hezbollah. The IDF says the targeted sites were used by the group to advance terror attacks against Israel. Nigeria says it provided the US with intelligence on Islamic State terrorists before the Christmas Day strikes by American forces that targeted terror hideouts in the country's northwest. Taiwan's opposition lawmakers begin the process of impeaching President Lynching, arguing he has undermined the self-ruled island's constitutional order and democracy. China says it provided humanitarian assistance to a Filipino fishing boat in the South China Sea. Manila welcomed the help, but says the Chinese Navy acted inside the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. And in India, the Madras High Court urges Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government to pass an Australia-like law to ban social media for individuals under the age of 16. Let's begin with Myanmar, where the country is preparing for elections this Sunday for the first time since the military takeover nearly 5 years ago. The vote is being hailed by the ruling generals as a step towards stability, but critics say the reality on the ground tells a very different story. Voting is scheduled to begin on December 28th, followed by 2 additional phases on January 11th and January 25th. The election will not be held nationwide, though, due to continuing conflict across the country. More than 50 parties are taking part in the election, but most are close to the military or rely on its support. Only 6 parties are contesting the poll, including the military-backed Union Solidarity and Development Party. It has put forward the most candidates and faces little or no competition in many areas. Experts say this gives voters very limited choice, with hardly any real opposition to military rule on the ballot.
Because the election is not inclusive, the military does not even want people along the border, people from ethnic groups and resistance groups to take part in this election. I think the idea is only to have an election, yeah, and they will take it from there, no matter what the result is. But I guess the result is pretty predictable for everybody, that USDP, the proxy party of the Myanmar military, will definitely win. They have sent most candidates for this election.
And former leader Aung San Suu Kyi remains in prison, while her party, which won the last election in a landslide victory in 2020, has been dissolved. Several ethnic and opposition parties have also been barred, leaving millions of voters without political representation. However, smaller groups linked to Suu Kyi's supporters are contesting Sunday's election.
If Mother Aung San Suu Kyi cannot come, I, as Mother's daughter, who is a real Khao Mu resident and former member of 1990 NLD, will come. Please do not say that Mother cannot come.
I am interested in this election because I think only this election can change our situation. It can change to a new era. I am interested and I'm going to vote.
The military junta says the election has public support and denies using force. However, new election protection laws now criminalize even mild criticism of the vote. Since July, hundreds of people have been arrested for speaking out against the junta. Western governments and the United Nations have rejected the vote, calling it neither free nor fair. But China, the military's key ally, is backing the election, seeing it as a way to restore order in Myanmar. However, ground data tells a different story, with the conflict intensifying over the past year. According to conflict tracker ACLED, military air and drone strikes rose by about 30% in 2025 compared to 2024.
China is another country. To give an example, It's as if an outsider was involved in our family issues. I want to sort out family matters by ourselves. I don't like to have other people involved.
Well, Myanmar remains locked in intense conflict. Armed resistance groups control large parts of the country and fighting has continued since the 2021 coup. The army says the election marks a return to democracy and offers rebels a chance to make peace. But with much of the country excluded from voting and the conflict far from over, the question remains whether Myanmar's election marks a return to democracy or becomes another chapter in a prolonged crisis. Well, for more on this, we have with us Min Tent Bo, Advocacy and Communications Officer at Burma Campaign UK, joining us live from London. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. So let me ask you first, with opposition groups either banned or not taking part, how legitimate can this election be?
To be honest, there is no doubt that this election will be a sham. There's no credible opposition, and junta leader Min Aung Hlaing has made it clear that anyone participating is expected to cooperate with the military. And like you mentioned it before, there is introduced a law in July that effectively criminalized any criticism of the elections. Voting cannot be held in large parts of the country due to ongoing conflict. And the only question is that the extent to which the military can use these elections to hoodwink that international community into legitimizing the regime. Any kind of acknowledgement will be a win for the junta, I would say.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, even as we discuss elections, Aung San Suu Kyi still remains in prison. How much of a shadow does that cast over the proceedings?
So Aung San Suu Kyi is very much an elephant in the room, giving her symbolism as opposition figure, the leader of the Burmese people. But there has been a lot of speculation about her health lately, in which the military denies. But her absence, it's impossible to ignore. Moreover, there is widespread conflict, around the country, which with an equally big concern, I would say. So, for example, 36 million IDPs, a staggering 20 million require humanitarian aid, which is which is more than 1/3 of the total population of the country. And at least 30 people were killed in Muragul Hospital, Rakhine State, 2 weeks ago, because of the military junta airstrike.
So how might the outcome of the coming polls then shape the future of Myanmar? Will it make any difference in your view?
So the elections are a shell exercise in political theater that no one with any basic understanding of the country should buy into. I would say that.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Well, thanks very much indeed for joining us. That's Min Tent Bo. Thank you. Now, we're going to move on to another story, shifting the focus to Bangladesh. Just days after lynching of 27-year-old Deepu Chandra Das, Bangladesh has witnessed another lynching of a Hindu man. The incidents have sparked wider concerns in the region over the safety of minorities. Well, a short while ago, India's Ministry of External Affairs condemned the killing, saying it hopes that the perpetrators of the crime will be brought to justice.
We are all aware of the recent developments in Bangladesh. We have been closely following them. And as far as law and order situation is concerned, I have been apprising you from time to time as to what our position has been or should be and is today. The unremitting hostility against minorities in Bangladesh, including Hindus, Christians, and Buddhists at the hands of extremists, is a matter of grave concern. We condemn the recent gruesome killing of a Hindu youth in Myanmar and expect that the perpetrators of the crime would be brought to justice.
Well, New Delhi made it clear that the sheer scale of violence against minorities in Bangladesh cannot be brushed aside.
Over 2,900 incidents of violence against minorities, including cases of killings, arsons, land grab, have been documented by independent sources during the tenure of the interim government. These incidents cannot be brushed aside as mere media exaggerations or dismissed as political violence.
Well, late on Wednesday night, a 30-year-old Hindu man was beaten to death by a group of villagers in a district 150 kilometers east of Dhaka. The victim has been identified as Amrit Mondal. According to police, he was assaulted by a mob following an altercation. He was rescued in a critical condition and taken to a local hospital, but was declared dead the following day. Bangladeshi police say the attack stemmed from an alleged extortion-related dispute. Authorities allege that Mondal led a local group which was involved with intimidation and forced collection of money. Police say at least 2 cases, including one for murder, have been registered against him. Well, hours after the killing, the interim government in Dhaka described the incident as unfortunate, but insisted it was not an ethnically motivated attack. In a press statement, the interim administration said it strongly condemned the lynching, but accused a particular segment of attempting to project it as communal. The government said the lynching was the result of a violent situation that arose from extortion and criminal activities. Either way, it's important to point out that 2 Hindu men have now been lynched within days. Both lynchings have taken place against the backdrop of widespread unrest across Bangladesh, following the death of controversial student leader Sharif Osman Hadi. He succumbed to gunshot injuries on December the 18th. His death triggered protests, vandalism and attacks on political and diplomatic sites in several parts of the country. And amid this escalating violence, the ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has launched a sharp attack on the current ruling group. In a Christmas address, Hasina accused the present regime of subjecting religious minorities to what she described as unspeakable torture. Well, 2 lynchings in less than a week have raised troubling questions that go beyond individual cases, with denials and condemnations now being closely scrutinized. And as Bangladesh grapples with political unrest and concerns over law and order, the safety of minorities has emerged as a key test for those in power. Let's now shift our focus to West Asia. Kuwait, a nation known for its glitz and oil, relies heavily on foreign workers to keep its economy running. From corporate offices to households, well, now in a bid to keep this flourishing, the country has this week implemented new rules governing entry and residency visas for foreigners. Kuwait's Interior Ministry has announced that a monthly fee of around $32 will now apply for all entry and visit visas, aimed at simplifying residency procedures across the country. According to the ministry, the changes will streamline the procedures and provide clearer guidelines for investors, residents and employers. Under the new framework, foreign investors can apply for entry and residence visas through the Kuwait Direct Investment Promotion Authority, or KDIPA. Eligible investors may be granted residency permits for up to 15 years. That's subject to approval by the Council of Ministers. Well, permits require official confirmation from the authority that all conditions have been met. The new regulations also introduce a 4-month grace period for foreign residents to register the birth of their children, after which daily fines shall apply. More special rules have also been laid out for domestic workers, who must be between 21 and 60 years of age to receive entry permits. Now, domestic workers holding valid residency permits are allowed to stay outside Kuwait for up to 4 months. However, these rules will not apply to domestic workers who left Kuwait before the new regulations came into effect. Well, these regulations will affect Indian nationals who make up the largest share of Kuwait's domestic labour force, accounting for 42.2%. When expanded to the entire expat labour force, India leads with approximately 884,000 employees, representing nearly a third of Kuwait's total labour force and 35.3% of all expat workers. Well, Kuwait's reforms represent a major step towards modernising its immigration system, providing clarity for residents and foreign investors and ensuring compliance with national laws. Now, your favourite drink has just received a label makeover. It's a beverage that starts the morning in almost every household in India. A strong caffeinated brew that provides an energy boost. We are, of course, talking about tea. It's one of the most widely consumed drinks in the world. But is the tea you are consuming actually real? Well, now India is defining what counts as real tea. The guideline comes from the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, or FSSAI, the food safety regulator. Well, here's what it says. Only products made from a plant called Camellia sinensis can be labelled as tea. Anything else will be marked as misleading, as well as misbranding. Well, in its directive issued on December 24th, the regulator defined what can legally be called tea. If products like Kangra tea, green tea and instant tea are not derived from Camellia sinensis, they cannot be tea. Well, tea comes in many different flavours and variants: hibiscus, chamomile, peppermint and many more. Some have floral notes and others have earthy flavours. The FSSAI says these are herbal infusions, so they should be labelled as herbal drinks. No matter how popular, no matter how widely consumed, the word tea cannot be used in their packaging or advertisements. Well, these actions will now be deemed as misleading. It amounts to misbranding under the Food Safety and Standards Act of 2006. But it's all to help consumers with greater transparency. So what are the implications? Well, the rule will affect manufacturers, it will affect sellers, and it will affect online platforms too. They will have to repackage and come up with some new names. One exception remains. If a product contains real tea leaves, along with herbs, it can still be called tea. Well, in order to ensure the rules are being followed, the regulator has asked state and union territory food safety officials to closely monitor the market, and if the rules are not followed, action will be taken. Because tea is more than just a drink in India. It's almost a national obsession. According to recent data, India consumes about 1,197 million kilograms of tea every year. It's the second largest tea-consuming country in the world after China. And in the last financial year, the country exported around 258 million kilograms of the product. So India has drawn a clear line. The next time you reach out for a cup of tea, you might need to pause and check the leaves. That's all we have time for on the show today. We'll see you again tomorrow. Thanks very much indeed for watching. Bye-bye.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT, only on Firstpost.